In the shadowed halls of the Cairo Museum sits one of the most confounding relics ever discovered in Egypt, a small, elegant, yet utterly mysterious object known as the schist disk, or the Sabu disk. Carved from a single piece of brittle metamorphic rock called schist, it dates back over 5,000 years to Egypt's first dynasty, around 3000 BC. What makes it extraordinary is its design, a circular form roughly 61 centimeters, 24 inches in diameter, and about 10.6 centimeters tall, 4 to 17 inches, with a central hole and 3 inward curving lobes, or fins, descending toward the center. The craftsmanship is astonishing, considering the fin tips become as thin as 0.5 centimeters, about 1/5 of an inch, and the entire object was carved from one block. How were Bronze Age people able to craft such a precise artifact with primitive tools? It was found in the tomb of Prince Sabu at Saqqara by the British archaeologist Walter Bryan Emery in 1936, lying shattered among the remains of pottery, copper tools, and stone vessels. But even among the incredible craftsmanship of early dynastic Egypt, this object stood apart. Once reassembled, it revealed a shape so strange, so unlike anything else from that period, that it continues to defy explanation to this day. The disc features 3 delicate lobes that curve inward toward a central hub, as though it was meant to be mounted on some kind of spindle. The material itself is fragile, too fragile, in fact, for any kind of heavy-duty mechanical use, yet the design implies motion, rotation, or some kind of engineered purpose. The fins taper down to barely 0.5 centimeter thick, carved with a precision that should have been impossible using the copper and flint tools available at the dawn of Egyptian civilization. It looks aerodynamic, almost mechanical, as if it was designed to spin or to channel air, liquid, or perhaps even energy through its 3 openings. This artifact is officially classified as a vessel, but no one has convincingly explained what kind of vessel it could have been. It is far too thin and unstable to hold liquid or grain, and too complex to have been a mere ornament. Many have tried to fit it into familiar categories, calling it a flower vase, an incense burner, or even a decorative bowl, yet none of these explanations align with its geometry or purpose. A simple comparison with other vases and bowls from the same era makes this even clearer. Those are symmetrical, practical, and shaped for everyday use. The schist disk, on the other hand, feels designed for something else entirely, something we no longer understand. Even the most conservative Egyptologists admit that it's unique. Nothing else from that time looks remotely like it. And that raises a tantalizing question. Was it truly made by the people of Egypt's first dynasty? Or was it perhaps an heirloom from a much older, forgotten civilization passed down through generations? Some researchers believe that this possibility cannot be dismissed, noting that early dynastic Egypt inherited many artifacts and technologies whose origins remain unknown. Attempts to recreate the schist disk using modern tools have revealed just how advanced its design really is. Engineers and craftsmen who have replicated it say that carving such a form from stone, even with modern drills, requires extraordinary precision. A few experimenters have gone further, building 1-to-1 replicas out of lighter materials and mounting them on axles to test how they behave when spun. What they discovered is fascinating. When air or fluid pressure is applied to the lobes, the disc begins to rotate smoothly, almost effortlessly, as if its design naturally channels motion. This has led some to suggest that it might have been part of a larger mechanism, possibly used for water movement, vibration, or even energy generation. That idea resonates with other enigmatic objects from ancient Egypt that seem to show mechanical or technological intent, objects that appear too sophisticated for their supposed time. Other artifacts that some connect to the disk are these three pieces, which look very much like some sort of gear parts that were once part of a mechanical device. The speculation that the schist disk and these gear parts were a remnant of advanced technology is fueled by comparisons with artifacts from other ancient civilizations known for their engineering prowess. But the mystery deepens with the stories that have emerged around the disk in recent decades. One of the most famous comes from a tour guide at the Cairo Museum, whose father, according to legend, was involved in secret experiments conducted on a replica of the schist disk during the 1980s. He claimed that his father's team mounted the disk on a spindle and spun it rapidly while projecting specific sound frequencies toward it. At certain resonances, they reportedly witnessed something extraordinary, a glowing, infinity-shaped energy pattern forming around the spinning disk. When small stones and droplets of water were thrown into this field, they seemed to hover, suspended momentarily before falling back down. The experiment, according to the story, was repeated multiple times with the same result. The guide claimed to have seen it with his own eyes. If true, this would represent an astonishing discovery, evidence that the disk might not have been symbolic at all, but a fragment of an advanced technology capable of manipulating sound and energy in ways we barely understand. Yet there are no official reports, no documentation, and no scientific papers confirming such experiments ever took place. The story survives only as an oral account, retold by those who want to believe that ancient Egypt may have possessed knowledge long since lost. Still, the fascination endures. Could this fragile stone object have been part of an energy system, a device that harnessed vibration, resonance, or electromagnetism? Some researchers, such as Brian Forster, point to the precision and geometry of the schist disk as potential evidence of a lost high technology, one perhaps based on resonance or sound frequency, an idea not entirely foreign to Egyptian architecture. The ancient Egyptians, after all, were masters of sound and vibration. Their temples were built with acoustic precision, and the Great Pyramid itself exhibits measurable resonance properties. Listen to these acoustic demonstrations from Brian Forster's video in which he examines the King's Chamber, together with Youssef Awiyan, an expert of acoustic resonance. Could the schist disk have been part of an early attempt to harness or direct vibrational energy? Some connect the schist disk to the mysterious objects found at Abu Gurab. Abu Gurab is a site often overlooked in the shadow of the majestic Giza Plateau and serves as a crucial piece in examining the clues left by the use of advanced ancient technology. Central to the allure of this site are the meticulously crafted bowls, whose origins and purposes spark much debate and fascination. According to mainstream Egyptologists, the massive basins were used to hold sacrificial animal blood, which ran through the round channels cut into the paving. Yet, there is not a single drop of DNA or other evidence to support this theory. Moreover, the placement of the holes near the top rather than at the bottom also makes this theory implausible. The bowls are hewn from large blocks of travertine, and their creation evidently involved the use of ancient, high technology and some form of machining. The precise nature of these holes, upon closer inspection, reveals an oval shape rather than a perfect circle, suggesting the use of a specialized drilling technique unknown to modern archaeology. The finish on these artifacts ranges from exceptionally smooth surfaces to sharply angled edges, presenting a stark contrast to the rougher textures found on other parts of the same pieces. On some parts of the perfectly smooth surfaces, we can find additional machining marks. Further intriguing is the suggestion that the shape of these bowls bears a resemblance to components used in modern sonic levitation technology. A proponent of this theory is researcher Alex Putney, who has extensively explored the potential of resonant frequencies and their application in ancient technologies. According to Putney and others who support this viewpoint, the peculiar shapes and precise craftsmanship of the bowls discovered at Abu Gurab might not have been merely for ceremonial or decorative purposes. Instead, they suggest these artifacts were part of a complex system designed to harness acoustic energy. The theory hinges on the idea that these bowls, when struck or otherwise acoustically activated, could generate specific frequencies conducive to levitating objects or influencing matter in a manner currently understood only in the context of advanced physics. Again, the same technology suspected to be the purpose of the schist disk is found in Egypt. There are those who whisper that it came from a civilization far older than Egypt, one that vanished long before the first pharaohs rose. They have gone as far as comparing the schist disk to the Antikythera mechanism of ancient Greece, a device thousands of years younger but which also defied explanation when it was found. Both seem to hint at a forgotten understanding of motion, geometry, and mechanics far ahead of their time. Occasionally, archaeologists find something so out of place that they can only assume the item is either fake or a modern reproduction. This was the case for an item discovered over a century ago just off the coast of a remote Greek island. The small bronze artifact was dubbed the Antikythera mechanism, and researchers have suggested that it was an ancient analog computer that dated back to the start of the Greco-Roman era, around 200 BC. But how did the ancients craft this handheld computer, which includes nearly 40 precise and intricate bronze gears, over 2,000 years ago, during a time when such technology was thought to be non-existent? And what exactly was this device used for? Was it some sort of advanced mechanism used to track the celestial bodies, or a navigational device used by travelers of the era? Could there be more to the history of this fascinating ancient supercomputer? Could the answers behind this device lead us back to the ancient civilization of the Atlanteans? And is it possible that the Antikythera mechanism could be the lost key to identifying an advanced civilization lost to time? The discovery was made in the early 20th century, when a crew of sponge divers discovered an ancient shipwreck that sat on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea. The shipwreck lay on the east side of the Greek island of Antikythera, not far from the popular island of Crete. Upon inspection, it was discovered that the ship still held a collection of items that went down with it over 2,000 years ago, and this led researchers to suggest it was likely a trading or cargo ship. Various artifacts were recovered, including intricate jewelry, beautifully decorated pots and vases, and even a bronze statue depicting a philosopher. However, the most unusual find was a small device made up of brass gears and dials. This strange-looking device is unlike anything else ever discovered of the era, and was named the Antikythera mechanism after the island closest to the shipwreck. Upon first inspection, Researchers and scientists were able to identify that the device had various bronze parts and worked like some kind of handheld machine. They also noticed that on the back plate of the item, there were over 2,000 letters in Greek. These inscriptions may have been used as an ancient user manual, yet they are not complete as there are missing parts. The back cover features a description of the cosmos display, which shows the motion of planets. There are also inscriptions of planet cycles, star events, eclipse glyphs, moon-sun cycles, and others. The workmanship that went into the precision of the various bronze gears is far beyond what archaeologists ever thought possible of the era. Could this have been one of many devices made using a form of ancient technology that disappeared sometime during the first millennium? Archaeologists had studied the device for over a century, and while they all agreed the device could make astronomical predictions, the purpose of these predictions was still unknown. While many researchers had their theories, it was difficult to really determine its use as, unfortunately, it's been estimated that only around a third of the device remains. This has left researchers with a fair deal of uncertainty when explaining exactly how it worked. And if we only possess a third of the device, imagine how impressive the complete device is and what technological abilities it has in its whole composition. Thus, the device would sit in the Archaeological Museum of Athens for decades, and from time to time, various scientists may carefully work on the intricate device with no prevail. It wasn't until an advanced X-ray machine was shipped over to Greece from Britain that we could begin to understand the complex mechanics of the device. Over the past 20 years, the powerful X-rays have enabled scientists to gain more insights into the strange device. They painstakingly studied what was left of the apparatus from the many various X-rays, and this enabled them to create more in-depth theories on the original use. As they began to work on the images produced by the X-ray, the device blew the minds of the scientists and researchers, as the technology used in the construction of the mechanism should not have existed over 2,000 years ago. The Antikythera mechanism is composed of at least 37 rotating bronze gears, each with varying sizes and shapes. Each bronze cog was carefully manufactured to fit its chosen position, aligning with the cogs below and above. Each of the bronze cogs also had varying amounts of teeth corresponding to prime numbers. The Antikythera mechanism contains sets of gears, pins, and rivets, all of which work in a harmonious fashion. This would allow the person holding this device to manually configure the gears at their choosing, and like a computer, they would insert an input and receive an output. The person holding this device could manually move the gears and model the planets in the night sky, and keep a daily track of the movements of the celestial bodies. These discoveries led researchers to finally say that the Antikythera mechanism was the world's first man-made analog computer. While this may seem somewhat primitive, compared to our modern understanding of a computer, to know such a device existed over 2,000 years ago was a shock to all scientists and researchers. While the Antikythera mechanism is considered the world's first computer, it shouldn't be compared to the machines we use in our modern times. Modern computers deal in binary coding, a basic number system of ones and zeros, which utilize electrical signals to perform functions. But before digital technology was invented, we had analog computers. An analog computer uses mechanical principles as opposed to digital math, which is the driving force behind the functions of a modern computer. A wind-up clock is a great example of an analog device that was popular for over a century. Humans have been using analog computers for astronomical clocks since at least the 14th century. This was the dating often accepted by archaeologists and researchers until the small device known as the Antikythera mechanism turned the world of archaeology on its head. Researchers are still unsure if the Antikythera mechanism had a singular use, or whether it could be used for various purposes. Theories suggest that the device was used to model the planets and stars in the night sky, and could even allow one to calculate their position. This would enable the user to keep track of time and determine when a particular religious festival would occur. Others have suggested that it was used to identify when solar and lunar eclipses would occur. But one of the most popular theories that have built a lot of credence is that the device tracks celestial bodies' movement to enable mariners to travel vast distances on the open seas without losing their way. The studies on the apparatus have been continued over the years by various universities and groups of researchers. A team from the University College of London believes that the device was actually created by the great Greek mathematician Archimedes. While there is no concrete evidence to suggest this, the scientists at the UCL team believe the mathematics portrayed in the device is similar to that which was put forth by Archimedes. This would place a date of around 250 BCE on the device. However, other researchers have suggested dates ranging from around 150 BCE to 50 BCE. However, that's the date of the device we found. Surely there were other such instruments. And if they were, who knows how old the very first Antikythera mechanism ever made was? Nonetheless, the Antikythera mechanism is the only one of its kind that we have ever discovered. It is so incomprehensibly ahead of its time that scholars in our modern era still love to debate how it was crafted in ancient times. The device is likely one of many, with each gradually improving on the last. There are written accounts of such devices in Greek texts which suggest more existed, but the Antikythera is the only one that has survived. This mechanism may testify to a now lost form of ancient technology that may have had more than one use. As it was discovered on a Greek vessel just off the coast of the island of Antikythera, all researchers generally agree that it is of Greek origin. But could the Greeks have been influenced by an even older civilization, one from whom they received their alphabet? If the Antikythera mechanism served as a way to navigate the seas using the celestial bodies, maybe this technology originally belonged to the greatest known sailors of the ancient times, the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were an ancient civilization composed of independent city-states that lay along the Mediterranean Sea coast, stretching through what is now Syria, Lebanon, and northern Israel. They called themselves Canaanites and had created trade ports in North Africa and Spain, and sailed all the way to Britain and Ireland at least from the 1000 BCE, but possibly even much earlier. In fact, we have a video in which we present evidence of the possibility that the Phoenicians even reached the Americas thousands of years before the Scandinavians and Columbus. The Phoenicians were fiercely independent, rival cities, and unlike the neighboring inland states, they represented a confederation of maritime traders rather than a defined country. Nevertheless, from one of their colonies they founded one of the greatest countries of all, the Carthaginian Empire, which ruled the Mediterranean until it was destroyed by Rome. The Phoenicians and Carthaginians were known as the original master shipbuilders, and it was they who first dared to sail beyond the Pillars of Hercules and out to the vast open Atlantic Ocean according to various Greek sources. The Greeks would adopt the Phoenician alphabet, and they held a great deal of respect for the accomplishments of the Phoenicians. In various texts, the Phoenicians refer to themselves as one of the oldest continuous civilizations, possibly going back over 10,000 years. There are even hints that this seafaring civilization actually arose from the remains of Atlantis after their downfall some 12,000 years ago. Traveling these vast distances from their home in the modern Levant would suggest they have seafaring skills far surpassing their neighbors in Greece, and later, Rome. Is it possible that the Phoenicians were so good at navigating the seas because they had such a device as the Antikythera mechanism, which was later adopted by Greek merchants? Could this be the secret that enabled the Phoenicians to travel not only to the British Isles but even to America, as legends suggest? The Phoenicians are sometimes identified as the Atlanteans of Plato's narrative. One scholar, Peter Dawkins, suggests that Atlas, the Greek Titan, is also known as Enoch from biblical texts and is said to represent a phoenix. Thus, Atlantis is Phoenicia, the land of the phoenix. The Greeks also applied the term Atlanteans to the Phoenician colonies along the Barbary coast of North Africa, those living near the Atlas Mountains. Diodorus Siculus describes their Titan mythology and wars with the Libyan Amazons. Plato may have the same nation in mind, for he names the second Atlantean king Gadaros after a famous Phoenician colony near the Straits of Gibraltar. Is it possible that the original seafarers, who could travel without fear on the rough Atlantic Sea, were the original constructors of what later became the Antikythera mechanism? Or maybe the Phoenicians, just like the ancient Egyptians, are one of those breakaway civilizations that emerged after the fall of Atlantis? Maybe just like the Egyptians, the Phoenicians inherited some of the technology of Atlantis and used it to create their civilization. Does that mean that the Antikythera mechanism could be a small reminder of the technology once used by the Atlanteans? The Greeks highly revered the Phoenicians and learned a lot from their civilization. It's likely that they learned about the technology utilized in the Antikythera mechanism and that the master seafarers used such a device in their travels across the Atlantic Sea, bringing this technology to the Mediterranean from their ancient Atlantean place of origin. Archaeologists were unsure of what they had when they first found the Antikythera mechanism back in the 20th century. While they now have more theories to suggest its original use, others can't help but question its true origin. One alternative researcher has made a fascinating claim about the origins of the Antikythera mechanism, one which takes us not to the ancient city of Atlantis, but to another planet in our solar system. The YouTube channel UFO Sightings Daily went through various pictures from the Mars NASA rover catalog and found something startling. One of the images taken from the catalog of photos shows a rock-like item in the distance, and upon zooming in on the image, it seems to bear a remarkable resemblance to the Antikythera mechanism. The object doesn't look like any of the other rocks around the area and stands out from the rubble and dust, suggesting that it's clearly something else. Directly beside the item that resembles the Antikythera mechanism, we see another object that may have once been part of the device. Both items clearly show man-made lines and greatly resemble parts of the ancient Antikythera mechanism. Whatever the item is, it clearly doesn't blend with its surroundings and certainly wasn't produced by Mother Nature. If the Antikythera mechanism was an Atlantean technology, does that mean that Atlantis was a spacefaring civilization? Of course, none of this has been confirmed, and we can only speculate and theorize. But what is confirmed is that this device clearly proves the ancients were far more sophisticated than we could imagine. Whether it was Greek, Phoenician, or even Atlantean, the Antikythera mechanism is evidence that technological development is not linear like history books are trying to tell us, but cyclical. Ancient civilizations developed advanced technologies, and once their civilizations crumbled, their technologies vanished from history. Who knows what other devices are out there, hidden at the bottom of the sea, waiting to be discovered and reshape our history? Long before recorded history, there were advanced ancient civilizations, capable of building gigantic megalithic structures we can't build today, lifting enormous stone blocks weighing thousands of tons and stacking them with laser-like precision. Blocks we still struggle to lift even with our modern cranes. They crafted mathematically precise, flawless monuments from the hardest stone on Earth, leaving us to wonder who these builders were and how they accomplished the impossible. Were they merely primitive societies, or were they masters of a forgotten technology lost to the sands of time? Uncover the evidence of an ancient, global, and technologically sophisticated civilization that once ruled over our planet, constructing gigantic sites the ruins of which are still standing, before a cataclysmic event erased it from memory. Access our eBook, Prehistoric Megastructures, a nearly 500-page volume packed with images and in-depth analysis of some of the most astonishing and unexplained ancient structures ever discovered, monuments that were clearly built with advanced technology from a time long forgotten. There's a limited discount on the ebook, so make sure to get yours before it's too late.